Hello and welcome to IDDTalks here at AD University. I welcome you at the first Azerbaijan-UK policy dialogue. My name is Anastasia Lavrina and now I'm joined by a very distinguished guest, Mr. Charlie Day, Head of New Forum. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you very much. So, being a journalist was a broad experience. In your view, how much influence do media platforms, doesn't matter if it's an internet platform or TV stations, have in shaping foreign policy debates?
I think in this day and age, they're absolutely integral. And we are seeing a number of major global conflicts. We're seeing Gaza, we're seeing Ukraine. And the Ukraine war is an interesting phenomenon to study from the social media perspective, because it's the first time that not only has a war been captured on social media in real time, but the narratives around that war and the foreign policy discussions have been happening very much out in the open. Not just in terms of like international fora, the UN, these big supranationals, but in the White House, right? Zelensky coming in, the debacle of a PR and diplomatic meeting that they had earlier this year was very much, that was picked up by social media. It went absolutely viral, and it just showed the importance of the way that leaders in this day and age appear publicly, the way that they handle their approach to diplomacy in public forums, and knowing that that will be propagated and go viral on social media is a completely new reality to the very controlled one that we used to face years ago. So I think it's absolutely integral. I think that this country gets social media so right. All of the politicians have big followings. The president has, I was looking, has 1.6 million followers on Instagram, and their reels, the quality of their content, I would say is a lot higher than our politicians in the UK. So certainly a page out of Azerbaijan's book that can be taken.
The X platform became so much popular, especially with an appearance of Donald Trump, who brought all of these issues to the social media, and he's quite active in his accounts.
Exactly.
What about the United Kingdom, and especially the perceptions about the South Caucasus region and Azerbaijan? Do you feel there are specific changes in the media when it's being described, the situation in our region?
I'd say perceptions have evolved quite a bit from my parents' generation to my generation. There is still a ways to go in terms of what the perceptions are and what the reality is visiting the country. Of times past, the perception of Central Asia has been, well, of course, Soviet states and quite inward looking. What we're seeing now, Azerbaijan has been in this position for a while, but we're seeing some of the other Central Asian republics opening up to both Western investment, but also creative industries, and social media is leading that charge. And interviewing a lot of the London ambassadors and spending a lot of time with the Central Asian ambassadors in London, they're incredibly keen to promote tourism in their country, also engage with businesses in London and the UK to promote increased trade links between those two countries. So narratives are evolving, and I think that social media is a great tool for that. I think that people who still think that a country like Azerbaijan is it's a post-Soviet country, but people who think it's stuck in those sorts of trends need to visit. They need to see Baku, probably one of the most metropolitan and quite European cities actually that I've ever been to. Incredibly well-run, well-maintained, the infrastructure is fantastic. And I think through social media, we will see more of that in the West. Our perceptions will continue changing, and we have the opportunity for a generational perspective to continue that perception change.
You have interviewed many high-profile officials, including the ambassador of Azerbaijan to the United Kingdom, Mr. Elin Suleymanov. What were the key takeaways for you personally? There's something specific, what impressed you more?
So I would say first and foremost, I have a lot of respect for Ambassador Suleymanov, and mentioning the time that I spend with London ambassadors, he is certainly at the top. He is a very impressive diplomat. What struck me about him and what impressed me, first of all, is his grasp on the history, right? I think everything should begin with the history and the geography of a region and not just the country, and he knows so much about the historic empires, the Rashidans, the Umayyads, the Persian Empire, the Russian Empire, the Ottomans, and the way that shapes current geopolitics. I know he's also very well read in Azerbaijani poetry and Persian poetry. So his grasp on the culture is like no one else that I've interviewed, that I've experienced. And the other thing I will say is diplomacy is a very delicate space. And you know that you have met a formidable diplomat when you meet them ahead of an interview and you say, are there any topics that are off limits? Is there anything you don't want to discuss? And the most formidable guests, they say, no, don't worry, ask me anything, I can handle it.
And they don't ask you to send you the questions in advance, right?
He didn't ask. He was incredibly open. He said, we'll talk about anything you'd like to talk about, even some of the tougher topics, some of the discussing Soviet rule, discussing governance and leadership, and he was incredibly forthcoming, straightforward about that, and he is also an incredibly charming diplomat. So the relationship continued after the interview, and he's had me along to a lot of diplomatic events, and for that I'm very grateful. And I think you have a fantastic ambassador in London. You're very lucky.
Very nice to hear that. So here, Azerbaijan, UK, the first Azerbaijan-UK policy dialogue. It's a very important event, bringing together so many representatives of different think tanks, dissenters, and officials and journalists from the United Kingdom. What are the key outcomes for you specifically from this event, and how do you think it also contributes to the development of the bilateral relations?
So I think it's incredibly important for us to have more of these summits. I think that the exchange of ideas, especially for people from both politics and business, it acts to bridge that divide, because people from the political realm, it can be quite a siloed realm, and they get caught up in internal policy and politics. So to have a number of panel discussions, this one was just about energy. The one yesterday was about security, and then a broader one to start with. I think the exchange of ideas was invaluable. I would encourage, this is the first Azerbaijani-UK policy dialogue. I'd encourage one next year in the same way that we had the first Shusha Global Media Forum a few years ago, and this year was the third one, which I attended back in July. The president spoke and gave a fantastic interview for Q&A for over 2.5 hours in 3 different languages, incredibly impressive. Anything that fosters more dialogue, more exchange of ideas, policy ideas, and communication between countries in general, but especially between the UK and Azerbaijan, that have had historically such strong business and political ties. The UK recognized Azerbaijan's independence. There was the contract of the century in 1994 with BP working with SOCAR and the Azerbaijani government. So I think policy dialogues like this are absolutely invaluable.
Well, sir, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you will enjoy your time in Baku in Azerbaijan. Hope to see you again.
Thank you very much for having me. Very much appreciated.